It's been a while since I've done a Not Even Close, so today let's look at a Spider-Man related one. We're going to be going over why Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man from the Raimi trilogy versus Tom Holland's Spider-Man from the MCU timeline is not even close. So let's begin. In No Way Home, Tobey and Tom both fight the same villains, and there's even a moment where they match each other. So I think comparing their scenarios with each villain and how they performed should be a pretty good metric to use to determine who would win between the two. So let's begin with Doc Ock. Otto was able to match MCU Spider-Man even in the Iron Spider suit, and when Tom was in an enraged state, because Otto had threatened to kill MJ, which obviously pissed Peter off and made him fight harder than ever. Yet Otto was still able to match and eventually overpower him, with Otto winning that fight. And I know that MCU Spider-Man was at a disadvantage, because there were people in the area that needed to be saved. However, we can compare that to the bank fight from Spider-Man 2, to compare how he did with Tobey. First of all, it's important to mention that Tobey was not at his base strength in that fight, as he is consistently implied to be exhausted and fatigued throughout Spider-Man 2, not to mention his superpowers were going in and out of flux, not to mention the fact that he would be holding back since he has respect for Otto as a mentor figure. Yet even still, he was able to match Otto and was able to give him a good fight, cementing the fact that I think that Tobey, even at his weakest, would be above the most powerful version of Tom, as crazy as that sounds. With this being backed up with how Tobey performed against Doc Ock in the final battles of Spider-Man 2, as it was confirmed that when Tobey returned as Spider-Man, not only was he regaining his missing strength, but he was also stronger than he had ever been in his life, and he was able to match Doc Ock with relative ease, to the point where Otto had to employ dirty tactics in order to eventually weaken Tobey enough in order to capture him. With it even being confirmed that Otto was no match for Tobey's Spider-Man, with Tobey being the stronger one of the two. If Tobey, during the events of Spider-Man 2, was already confirmed to be stronger than a character who was able to match and defeat an enraged Iron Spider, then yeah, this ain't looking good for Tom already. But let's continue with Green Goblin. Green Goblin dominated Tom's Spider-Man during their battle at the Conduit, and whilst it's important to mention that Tom wasn't going for the kill, it is confirmed that he wasn't pulling his punches and he was putting all of his strength behind his physical blows, yet Goblin was able to shrug them off with little issues and was also able to win that fight. Even in the final battle of Spider-Man No Way Home, Goblin was still able to give Tom's Spider-Man a pretty good fight. And keep in mind that Tom at this point was not only willing to kill, but he was also once again not holding back. Yet Goblin was able to take all of these punches and was still laughing at the final battle. Now let's compare how Goblin did against Tobey's Spider-Man in Spider-Man 1. Tobey won all 3 fights against Goblin, even when he was holding back, with Goblin referring to Tobey as being all but invincible in comparison to himself, and Goblin also referring to Tobey as being the only person who could possibly stop him, meaning that Goblin himself believes that Tobey is just flat out superior to Goblin. With this being backed up in the final battle, even when Goblin had tried weakening Tobey's spirit, and he had also tried weakening his physical body, not only by putting him in danger and forcing him to save the children, but also by throwing a pumpkin bomb in his face and beating the crap out of him, Tobey was still able to eventually overwhelm Goblin, beating him so bad that he was begging for mercy. And keep in mind that this is Spider-Man 1 era Tobey, with Tobey being consistently confirmed to be more powerful with age within his films. And to put into context as to how much more impressive Tobey would become, Tobey, whilst holding back, was able to consistently beat Harry Osborn's Goblin in Spider-Man 3, with it being confirmed multiple times that Harry is just flat out more powerful than Norman Osborn's Goblin. So if Spider-Man 3 era Tobey, who should be significantly weaker than his No Way Home self, was able to match and beat a character who is stronger than Norman's Goblin, who is able to give Tom's Spider-Man some difficulty, even when he was no longer holding back, I think that speaks volumes as to how much stronger Tobey is than Tom, even in a weaker state than his current self. Moving on to Lizard, this is also another no-brainer, as Lizard was pretty much able to consistently ragdoll Tom's Spider-Man, with Tom needing help from Ned's portals in order to actually get the advantage over Lizard. And keep in mind that this would make Tom's Spider-Man less impressive than even Taz of One Andrew, since whilst Andrew was overwhelmed by Lizard in that film, at the very least he could give Connors a decent fight. And during the events of No Way Home, Andrew was eventually able to overpower Lizard, and was shown to be fairly even with him in strength. Tobey was the only one out of the 3 Spider-Men to actually give Connors a pretty good fight, with the 2 of them being pretty even as shown on the Crane fight. You could even argue that Tobey was slightly stronger than Connors, since the only time that Lizard actually got a few hits in was when Andrew accidentally webbed Tobey's face. Don't make a dirty joke out of that. So based off their respective performances against Lizard, Tobey would have once again edged out Tom's Spider-Man. Tobey also performs better against Electro than Tom does, but first we need some context. Tom's Spider-Man was shown to be laughably overpowered by Electro, to the point where he needed Sandman to save him, and also he needed Sandman's help in order to eventually neutralize Max. Keep in mind that this would also make Tom weaker than TASM 2 Andrew, who could 1v1 Electro for a long ass time, and he could also hold up better against Electro's attacks. However, Electro is confirmed in No Way Home to get significantly more powerful once he gets his hands on the arc reactor, which Andrew even comments on. Now it's important to mention that Tobey definitely doesn't scale to Electro, as Electro was able to overwhelm him, Andrew, and Tom all at once. However, Tobey does significantly the best against Electro, compared to the other two Spider-Men. We see that Electro, even in his base strength, was able to fuck up Tom's Spider-Man with a single electric blast, and we see that Electro's blasts are able to cause Andrew's Spider-Man, even during the events of No Way Home, great pain. Even when Tobey's Spider-Man is taking attacks from Electro, he doesn't scream once. In fact, he doesn't display any pain in the slightest, as his attention is more so focused on Doc Ock and fearing that he might once again turn to the dark side. And keep in mind that this was against the strongest version of Electro we've ever seen, meaning that No Way Home Tobey is once again outperforming not only Andrew, but also Tom. Made all the more impressive that Tobey doesn't have any gadgets like Andrew's Spider-Man, and he doesn't have any extra armor in his suit like Tom's Spider-Man, meaning that Tobey himself is taking these attacks better than an armored Tom Holland. Sandman is also another villain that I don't think either Tobey or Tom necessarily scale to. However, once again, Tobey performs better against Sandman than Tom does. For one, Sandman was able to protect Tom's Spider-Man from Electro for a long ass time, and was also able to contain Max for a few moments at least. Compare that to Tobey's Spider-Man, where even during the events of Spider-Man 3, he was able to outmaneuver and dodge Giant Sandman's attacks, and he was also able to cause damage to Giant Sandman, destroying his hand and also causing damage to his face. He could also endure attacks from this version of Sandman, although he couldn't do it for long. However, it's still impressive to think about, considering No Way Home Tobey would logically outperform Spider-Man 3 era Tobey, given that he's consistently stated to get more powerful with age. Not to mention that based off of feats and scaling, Tom Holland's Spider-Man should be around the Spider-Man 1 to Spider-Man 2 era of strength, being comparable to what Tobey was shown to be capable of during that time, with No Way Home Tobey, even whilst holding back, being able to neg a strike from a bloodlusted Tom Holland Spider-Man, demonstrating that he clearly got stronger with age and that he is the stronger one of the two. So now that we've established that Tobey's Spider-Man is a cut above Tom's Spider-Man when it comes to physicality, I want to take a look at the other things that Tom's Spider-Man brings to the table to see if they're enough to make up the difference. Tom's Spider-Man undeniably has better technology and armor than Tobey's Spider-Man, however I don't think that it's going to make any difference at all. If Vulture of all people can endure Tom's taser webs, then I see Tobey being able to do the exact same thing, especially as he was able to endure Electro's lightning at the peak of his power. Tom's Iron Spider suit also wouldn't make up the difference, since even in the Iron Spider suit, he was comparable to the weakest version of Tobey's Spider-Man, since Tobey in a weakened state whilst holding back did just as well, if not slightly better, against Doc Ock than Tom did in the Iron Spider suit, meaning that I don't think this costume is enough to make up the difference. The Iron Spider arms I don't think would overwhelm Tobey either, since he has more experience fighting Doc Ock than Tom does, meaning that he's pretty much used to fighting characters with extra appendages. And even if you want to make the argument that Tom is around Tobey's level in strength, that wouldn't even matter since Tobey has fought Venom in the past, someone who was shown to be physically superior to him, with Tobey able to match him and eventually get the better of him. And obviously Tobey has got stronger since then. And whilst Tom's Spider-Man might be more intelligent than Tobey's Spider-Man, I don't see that helping him in a fight, especially since Tobey is not only older and more experienced, however he also has experience fighting spider characters with similar powers to himself. There's also Tobey's webbing, which is organic, and as a result he can't run out of it as his body makes an unlimited amount. Compare that to Tom's Spider-Man, where his webs are not only very weak, however they can also run out. Since Tobey could tear apart Andrew's webbing, which was strong enough to restrain the Lizard in enough quantity. And keep in mind that Lizard is shown consistently to be significantly stronger than Tom's Spider-Man. So if Tobey can tear apart webbing that can restrain characters stronger than Tom's Spider-Man, then I don't see Tom's webbing doing much to Tobey. At the end of the day, I don't think there's anything that Tom brings to the table that Tobey doesn't have a counter for. You can argue that Tom is more intelligent than Tobey, that's perfectly fine, but that's countered by Tobey's experience. And whilst Tom definitely has better equipment than Tobey, he's bringing nothing to the fight that is actually going to give him an advantage against the original Spider-Man. And as a result, when it comes to a fight between these two characters, I don't see it being close, as Tobey is not only physically superior, but he also has an answer for everything Tom will throw his way. Not to mention he's older and more experienced and has actual combat experience at fighting someone with similar powers to himself. And that's why, ultimately, I think in a fight between these two Spider-Men, I don't see it being close. But that's what I think. What do you guys think? Feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the channel, become a member to the channel for as little as £1 a month, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.